Dear Mama, you have so many questions, but not enough answers. You wish you didn't have to ask, and that's why I'm writing you this letter. You're not alone, you're not crazy, and I hope this helps. I see you because I am you. Sincerely, Mama. Hey, Mama. Hey, you're tuned in to Sincerely Mama podcast, where we've created a safe space for us to share all things motherhood, not magical motherhood, but realistic motherhood. I'm your host, Jackie Bobbitt, millennial mom, entrepreneur, and purpose coach. I am so excited for today's episode. I have Miss Julia, and I am so excited for you guys to meet her. Please, Julia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Jackie. Thanks so much for having me. Jackie has been such a great support to my work, and I have loved supporting her work. She's the OG around here. I'm just so grateful for all that she's been doing. All that she's been doing for the mamas. And thanks so much for having me. Okay, so I'm a board certified art therapist and a licensed professional counselor. Certified in Texas and in Pennsylvania, and then I get to talk to people all the way in Mississippi, right? I'm like,
right.
It's been so cool to connect with moms from all over the country and actually even all over the world through this work. So that's kind of what I do. I run art therapy groups for moms here in Texas in person, but then I also hold virtual groups as well. And then I do in-person individual therapy, and then also virtual individual therapy. So yeah, art, talk, the whole thing.
So Julia, let us know, you are a mama. Let us know how many littles you have and their ages if you're comfortable with sharing.
Yes. And thank you for reminding me of my most important job of being a mom. It is the most important job, and it's the hardest one, I will add.
Thanks.
Yes. They don't care about my degrees, turns out. They do not care. No, they definitely have my heart. So I have my eldest, who's a little girl named Isabella, and she's 5. And then I have my second, whose name is Naomi, who goes strictly by Mimi these days. She's 3. And then I have our baby boy, Isaiah, and he is 15 months. So we're in the thick of it, and postpartum wasn't that far away for me. I mean, some might still consider me in it a little bit.
Right.
A postpartum elderly or something.
Right, which is why this topic is going to be so great to dive into. We are talking about postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. And Julia, just let us know, what is that? So maybe some of our viewers or listeners have never heard of that. So could you just tell us what the difference is? What is postpartum depression and anxiety?
Yes. So glad that we're covering this topic today. It is very important, and awareness so that you can help yourself, get help you need, and help others is key. So postpartum depression is a mood disorder, and it's characterized by excessive sadness and hopelessness in the postpartum time period. That can be anywhere from a couple weeks to months to up to a year after a baby's born. And then postpartum anxiety is characterized by excessive worry, by fearfulness and anxiety, mostly around baby's health and well-being, and sometimes around mom's health and well-being.
Wow.
So it's pretty particular to that. I did want to add, if I may, 2 things. First of all, I want to talk about something called baby blues. And why I wanted to bring that up real quick is because this just goes to show how monumental having a baby is. Because there's this thing that happens where the 2 to 3 weeks following a birth, your hormones take such a huge shift, a huge dip, and with lactation, all these things, your body's just doing a really intense thing. And then you're probably sleep deprived. And then you have the external factors of transitioning a whole new life into your family with your partner in a house, finances being shifted, all of these things. So for those reasons, there is a very normal time that has been called baby blues, which involves things like worry and fearfulness, maybe irritability, all these things that might look like a mental health disorder, but actually are considered just a normal response. That blows my mind because it just, again, goes to show that that's just baseline. Like, that's almost expected. It is not guaranteed. So if there's any mamas out there that's about to have their baby and they're like, wait, what? It is not guaranteed, but also a comfort that if you experience that, that's normal. And that is actually kind of common too. What we want to be aware of is the 2 to 3 weeks after. If you continue to feel those feelings of anxiety or hopelessness or intense irritability, then you want to maybe look into more support. Specifically at the 8-week period postpartum, if those symptoms are intensifying or maybe even showing up for the first time, then you really want to be more aware. So I just wanted to point that out, that you could be in that situation of baby blues, and it's not necessarily a diagnosis quite yet. Then the other quick thing, if I may share, is there's something called intrusive thoughts. So I wanted to add this on as well, because this is another super common symptoms of a mom, whether or not she has postpartum anxiety and depression or doesn't. What that involves, and it affects about half of mothers actually. So again, it is pretty common. So what it might look like is any thought or even mental image that comes to mind uninvited that has to do with harming the baby or harm happening to the baby. That can occur within a mental health diagnosis, but it also can occur without one, as in it can be a normal response to trying so hard to keep a baby safe that your mind does this crazy thing where it can kind of rehearse negative things happening so that you can preempt it and kind of figure out what you might do in that event.
Right.
You just want to be aware that those intrusive thoughts, if you're having those, again, super normal and common. You want to be aware that it's not dictating your actions. Are you starting to avoid normal things like walking down the stairs because you have this intrusive thought of something bad happening? Are you avoiding going outside because you're having these intrusive thoughts? Are they dictating actions that you are considering doing? So you want to be aware of those things. And that's, again, when you want to seek out help. So I hope that's okay. I just wanted to
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you made me think about a question that I had not thought of. Is it possible to experience all of those things or maybe more than one?
Yes, for sure. It's possible to experience all of those things. Apparently 2/3 of moms that experience postpartum depression also experience postpartum anxiety. So they are, as we say in the mental health field, comorbid at times, but not always. So I think the key here is to be aware, right? Just to treat yourself with kindness and compassion. If you find yourself experiencing some heavy things, maybe it's just a normal response in the time frame. But notice if it starts affecting your everyday living, if people that love you and know you well have noticed a change that's lasting longer than, the 2 to 3 week period. Just be vigilant and aware about that. And know too that if you seek help, that is to just make you the best mom you can be. It doesn't mean you're not a fit mom or that the kids won't be able to be with you. Like, this is your chance to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your kids.
Nice. So, Julia, I know that you like statistics. So,
Mhm.
share with us some statistics so that moms can feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. This happens often or more often than we think. So, share with us some statistics around postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, or PPD and PPA for short.
Yes. Yeah, we might need to use those abbreviations if we're throwing them around a lot this podcast. About 1 in 7 women experience postpartum depression, which is a pretty hefty number. And then 1 in 10 experience postpartum anxiety. And then the other thing to consider is that those numbers could actually be higher if people are underreporting because of feeling stigma or not having access to good mental health care for whatever reason. Those numbers may even look higher. So the long story short is that motherhood is hard and it's a big job. It's the best job. It's I think kind of one of the most important jobs, but it's also normal to react that way in your mind and in your body because it's so monumental.
Right. So, what are some symptoms? We can start with postpartum anxiety. What are some symptoms that a mom might feel past the 4 week mark? What are some symptoms that she might start to feel, and it could be a telltale sign of postpartum anxiety?
Yeah. This is a great question. So, symptoms of postpartum anxiety. We'll start with that one first and then postpartum depression. Was that right?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So, postpartum anxiety, you're going to experience things like racing thoughts. Again, that excessive worry, like a fixation, trouble concentrating because of feeling overcome by worry. And again, mostly around baby's health and well-being, or sometimes around your own as the mom. With postpartum depression, you might experience things like a loss in pleasure for things that usually would cause you pleasure or you would find enjoyment in, irritability, sleep disturbances, feelings of hopelessness, low energy, lack of motivation, these sorts of things.
Wow. So you also added two, baby blues and intrusive thoughts. So give us some symptoms that a mom might experience with those.
Yeah. So baby blues can kind of look like a little sampling of postpartum depression and anxiety, but not as intense. So just think like intense moodiness. Essentially, it's just coping with a really big shift in your life. And then also a hormonal shift.
Right.
So irritability, again, some sadness, maybe feeling kind of weepy, lots of crying in the shower is common.
Right.
Yes. I'm like, raise your hand if you've been there. Yeah. Feelings of being trapped or being overwhelmed. And again, you just want to keep an eye on if those symptoms are intensifying or if they persist. And then intrusive thoughts. Those thoughts, what's upsetting about those thoughts is that they're intrusive. So they're uninvited. They don't feel akin to a person's nature, which again is a good reminder to yourself if you've experienced those, that that's not you. Like, this is just your way of trying to behold this helpless, precious creature and take care of them the best you can. And so your fears might just suddenly flash in front of you as a way to rehearse how you might react in such an event. it might look like something that the mom might do impulsively that she would never do. Things like if you're walking down the stairs with the baby or bathing the baby, something happening to them, changing their diaper, being afraid that you might do something wrong, or having a thought of like, what if I did this? It's very common. And again, just being aware that, the thought is noticed and then worked through. There's this saying that goes, I think it's Dan Siegel. He's a researcher in this area. If you name it, you tame it, and then keep it moving. Like we don't need it forever, but if you name it, like, I see you, you're afraid you're going to trip with your baby. I've walked down these stairs before. I will be okay. And then you move it forward. And then you also acknowledge when you did it and everything was okay.
Right.
And luckily these things don't last forever, but it's something to be aware of. So if a mama's listening and is about to go into the season, just be aware that if that happens, that's a normal response.
Right. And you said something, it doesn't last forever. How long is it? And I know you wouldn't have the answer for every mom because every mom is different, but how long has it been cited for postpartum anxiety or depression to last? What does that space look like?
Yeah, great question. So it can last anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months to up to a year. Of course, it depends on the situation and the person. And it also depends on if the mom has chosen and is able to receive support. The sooner someone receives support, the less likely the symptoms will last as long or be as intense.
Wow. So when is it important to seek support or professional help? Because you know how sometimes we believe I can just chat with my friend, my girlfriend who maybe has gone through this before. But when do you believe is a good time to seek professional help? Like maybe this might be different.
Yep. Great question. Because we all have our low days, and so it's like, okay, when is this not just a low day? Right. And when is this a thing I need to look into getting help on? Well, a couple things. First of all, if you've just had a baby and it's been hard and you aren't necessarily qualifying for a diagnosis, you still deserve support and get that support. Because sometimes it then can actually turn into that if you don't get the support you need. And maybe, later we'll talk about more specific ways to help yourself in those seasons to kind of prevent things from getting worse. But just know that be aware of it and kind of look out for it and react, I think, sooner than later is always good. So you're going to look for things like, is it affecting your everyday functioning, right? If when it is time to go back to work or whatever you've set up for your family, if it's not going into an office job, maybe it's just keeping the routine up at home. It's kind of your usual flow pre-baby. If you are having trouble getting back into that rhythm, more than 5 months out at a rate that is doable, considering lack of sleep, considering more kids or a kid at all for the first time, then you're going to want to be aware of that. So give yourself grace. It's not going to be that you're like show up 100% or something's wrong, but just notice, is this affecting my work or my everyday functioning? Like, am I able to get anything done that I do need to get done to move along in life and take care of myself and my family? You also, of course, want to hear from people that know and love you. Are they noticing anything? And that can be hard to hear sometimes, but I think sometimes others can see it more clearly if they're trusted around us. Another thing for me that I noticed when it would be really hard in some seasons and some days or some weeks or months was when I did have the chance, and it wasn't always that I had the chance, but if I was able to do something I really enjoyed, like make some art or go out with some friends or watch a funny TV show, like if I could do those things, did it bring back that pleasure and enjoyment? Like, did I have access to a side of myself that had hope and reminded me of a time where I wasn't overcome with these certain intense, hard emotions? I think that's a sign too that you're in something, but you have a lifeline that you can, you can toggle in and out of it a little bit more. But if you feel like nothing's helping, that's when you might want to look into professional help. And from there, I mean, people that are professionals can even recommend things like certain kinds of therapy or even medication, a medication that fits with your body, your makeup, and your choices for your baby, if it's breastfeeding and all those things, working with a professional in a way that's comfortable for you too and your baby.
Right. And you mentioned something about knowing or talking with the people that love you. That can be tricky, right? Because as I hear you explain each of them and then kind of come to a realization that not even maybe, but that I experienced a lot of that. I remember my husband, suggesting that was going on. And, I was like, oh no, that's not it. And there's just such a stigma around even labeling your experience or you as a person as going through postpartum anxiety or depression, because I know that was something I was like, no, I'm exempt. I can't go through that, or that won't happen to me. And so that's interesting that you said to lean into those people. But I was like, no, you surely don't know what you're talking about, because that's not happening, right?
Yeah.
But so how can therapy be helpful? You said that it's important to seek support and lean into those things, but how can it be helpful?
Yeah. Can I just say a quick thing about what you said before?
Sure.
I just want to say that it is so hard to have honest conversations, even with those that we love the most and love us the most, because it's vulnerable and It's hard to feel like you're the one that needs help, especially if you're in a position where you've been helping people or for whatever reason that just doesn't feel like your brand. It's like no one is above or beneath help. Everyone deserves it. And it's a sign of strength to reach out for help. It's not a sign of weakness. But it is hard to do. So I just call that out. I've been there. I've had to ask for help and it has been hard. It's vulnerable. Maybe something to kind of get in front of that. If you happen to be listening to this and you're about to welcome a new life to the family, maybe chat with your partner or chat with a friend or your community and just say, hey, would you check in with me or can I check in with you? Just like a way of accountability that feels comfortable for you and also feels inviting and safe and helpful. Not like, oh no, something's wrong, but just like, we love you. And also we want to provide hope that things do change and get easier and get better. And how can we help that happen quicker? So kind of like maybe even having those conversations now before you're in the thick of it. It's really hard to ask your friends or your spouse or a professional for help when you're, screaming at the top of your lungs because you haven't gotten any sleep and kids drive you crazy.
Right. And then even I know for me, another reason I did not reach out for help, a thought that kind of lured over me was I don't want anybody to think that I'm not fit to raise my children, And so you mentioned that at the beginning, and I just wanted to kind of loop back around to that that was a thought. Like, I don't want anybody to take my children. I'm okay. Things will smooth out at some point.
Yeah.
But you're saying to moms that may be in that same spot, it is okay to reach out. It is okay to say, I may need some help. Like, I may need some assistance. And it doesn't mean that you're unfit.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you are not a great mom. It doesn't mean any of that. So,
right. Our kids need a real mom. They don't need a perfect mom. They need you. My kids need me. Like, they need us to show up authentically as we are. And in fact, how powerful is it for our kids to see us ask for help and to be vulnerable with trusted people? Because it lets them know that they are safe to do that too, and to find a healthy community to look to for help, to be that support for other people too. It's a beautiful example of healthy community and a way to take care of yourself, and that we all deserve that. So if anything, it's modeling something incredibly important to your kids. Our kids remember those kinds of things. They don't remember that we did everything perfectly. And to be honest, I've had clients that the problem wasn't a mom that wasn't perfect. It was a mom that was a little bit too perfect, and no one's perfect. So I do this, but like, that can be a lot, right? To feel like I never saw mom need help. So what a relief to be that parent for our kids. And if you're also a mom that's afraid that, any of these symptoms are going to make it so that your kids can't be with you, if you're even aware of that, then you're the most aware, vigilant, wise mom to even worry about that. Now you're not even in that category because you're so aware and so conscientious and want the best for your kids. And I've worked with a lot of moms, the intrusive thoughts, depression, anxiety, when they're reaching out for help, their kids are in amazing hands for someone that wants to take care of themselves so that they can be the best caretaker for their family and their kids.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, do me a favor and share it with another mama. Subscribe to this podcast and leave us a 5-star review. Also, connect with us on all social media platforms at Sincerely Mama Podcast. Remember, you're the best mama for your children. We'll see you next time. Sincerely Mama.